comes around.
Yes, the man will come around. Aloha. It is Tuesday, April 16th, 2013 at 12:06 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, and you have arrived on Take Liberty with Lawrence Carnicelli, where we set to free your mind of the state-run media and where common sense wins out. We are encouraging political atheism for all. You're tuned in to KAOI 1110 AM and 96.7 FM. Also, I believe we have a few people listening live streaming on the interweb at KAOI1110.com. Take Liberty is brought to you by Maui Plumbing, 344-0642. Kane and Heron, the attorneys with heart, 242-9350. And Maui Surplus and Survival, located over at 900 Aha Street, next to Hotspot Video in Wailuku. Aloha, I am Lawrence Carnicelli, and always with me in the studio is Gary Forsberg. Aloha, Gary.
Run silent, run deep, Larry.
What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. And then also in the studio with me is from the morning show on Q103 is Shaggy. Aloha, Shaggy.
Hi, how's it going? First time here.
I love having you on here, and you know, I heard your show this morning, and I loved the question that you posed for everybody.
Well, it's a simple question. And you know, we look at events like yesterday, and we think, oh, why this, why that, and why that? No. You just think of simple questions. And my simple question today was, why can't we all just get along?
Why can't we all get along? You know what, is Rodney King.
Yeah.
Rodney King, going all the way back to, you know, and it's funny, it's almost just become a cliche in our society, but I think it's a great question. Why can't we all get along?
Oh, I figure if you can answer that question, everything around you will make sense. But if you can't answer that question, then why try to make sense of anything, right?
Right, and I think in bringing up what happened yesterday and trying to make sense of that is, I have to just say that it really, really affected me. What happened in Boston with the bombs going off is, you know, this show I try to shed light on certain things, and you know, I guess for people out there in listener land, I have this libertarian stance, and I want to sort of kind of be that guy on the wall, shedding light on things, saying, you know what, there's hypocrisy here and there, and I want to right injustices and things of that nature. But yet there's this other part of me that, you know, I do meditation, and I, you know, go on retreats, and I believe that the light will always win out over the dark, even though I always talk about on the show, it seems as though, you know, we're talking about gun control, and we're talking about all these things, it's a battle, and everything's a fight. But yet I also look at just like, you know, there is a higher consciousness in the world as well, and as this darkness arises, so does the light. And the aspect of this higher consciousness that's also coming, that's also arising at the same time as things are getting, it's seemingly, I guess, things are getting bad or worse or whatever it is. But the question, I guess, for me is, okay, why can't we all get along? But what really is going on, and who is winning? Is the light winning right now? Is the dark winning? Are things getting better, or are they getting worse? You know, we talk about, you know, the Mayans and, you know, this new millennium and everything like that. But if you look at what it really was, is it was a turn in a new age. We've brought in a new age and a new paradigm. And there's a gap here. And there's actually a movie called, I believe it's Point Choice or Choice Point, one of those two, that talks about that. That talks about, like, we can bring in, we've got a choice right now. What do we want to do? Do we want to run around killing each other, or do we want to go around loving each other? What do we really want to do?
You know, and this is the thing that's confusing to me. It's as much as you ask people common sense questions about what is it that we want to do as a race? What is it that we want to do as a society? What is it that we want to do as a people, or as an ideal of Americanism that we hold in our heads? And, well, the public education system has told us that we hold in our hearts as well. What is it that we actually want to do with those things? And a lot of times you have a lot of different factions that will always come forward. Well, this is what we should do. Well, no, this is what we should do. And the thing is all these factions never come to a consensus. But yet we're all one society. We're all one country. We're all one people. And if you think about the greater expanse, you know, you're talking about the age of awareness and the new paradigm in the world. Shouldn't this be the time of the human race going, oh my God, if we look at the research, there is only 6 strands of DNA in the entire world that differentiate 7 billion life forms on one planet. Why do we have these petty differences?
I think that that's a great question. And if we step back and we look at things more macro, like you just said, we're sitting on a rock.
In the middle of nowhere.
It's an organic rock. We're sitting on this organic rock that's hurling through space. Mm-hmm. And, as I always find it funny, people talk about like, you're going to kill the planet. You're going to kill the planet. It's impossible for us as this little organism on this rock that's hurling through space to kill it. We cannot kill the Earth. That's a misnomer. But what we can do is we can make it uninhabitable for ourselves.
Yes.
And so I think if we started framing it that way, instead of saying like, you're going to kill the planet, you're going to destroy the planet, it's like, no, what if you just said, what you're going to do is you're going to kill your own ecosystem. Mm-hmm. You're going to make this place uninhabitable and unlivable for you and every generation to come. And not just, and I mean, maybe you love little puppies more than you love people, or you like kittens. Well, you're still going to make it uninhabitable for kittens too.
Yeah. You come across what is, I guess, been referred to through history as the Manhattan Conundrum. And back in World War II, when we had the Manhattan Project, and all of these scientists got together and says, "Dear God, we figured out how to split the atom, the most destructive force in nature, and we as a simple race have figured this out. We need to lie and tell everybody." And Einstein went about this for about 3 months and lied to everybody and said, not only is it not possible, but if we ever were to do it, it would instantaneously result in the destruction of all mankind. And the reason that they did things like that is because they knew once you give one faction in any argument any sort of power, the next faction down from them becomes unimportant. And you go from calling somebody an individual to, like we were talking about before the show, to their collateral damage.
Right.
And some people, no matter how much you want them to be educated, are not going to see themselves, the citizens of their sovereign nation, as collateral damage in anything. And we have to kind of think about that. If you're making moves on your end, does your life choices infringe upon someone else? And if that infringement does happen, is it to the point that the retaliation is going to result in something like Boston was yesterday? And we have to think about these things.
Sure. And you do bring that, bringing Boston back in, because it's interesting. I was really impacted by it, like I said earlier. And this is the part that that struck me, is I found out about what had happened via Facebook.
Yeah.
And there's a prolific Facebooker that I really enjoy, that he posts on there, bring all the conspiracy theorists out. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a field day with this one. And I'm kind of, what is he talking about? And so I kind of find out, oh, gosh, this is what happened. This is shortly thereafter. And the part that I kind of gathered is because I am one of those people that kind of goes to, okay, what's the real story here?
Yeah.
And that's my default. But the fact that I found out about it, as far as going to be called a conspiracy theorist, is I kind of felt chopped off at the knees before I even started, because it was like, okay, if you question the original narrative or whatever it is they're going to put on TV, then you're a kook. So I kind of felt cut off at the knees at the very beginning, and then you find out, okay, it was this bomb, and then of course there's the whole, they're trying to say, okay, is this domestic terrorism, which to me, I'm completely freaked out, not by domestic terrorists themselves, but by the government really trying to label a whole group and society of people as domestic terrorists because we have a war on these people, so now they can come after Americans. So in a way, I'm going, gosh, I really hope that it's not pinned on that. I hope that it's not a domestic terrorist, because that's going to mean even more freedoms taken away and more civil liberties removed. Then I thought, okay, well, what if it's really, say, a jihadist or whatever it is that is also an American or here legally? Then, well, that's another reason for the Department of Homeland Security to do their thing. And then you thought, like, okay, well, the last case scenario is, okay, it is somebody from outside the United States that came in here and they're really trying to harm us. And I thought, oh gosh, I really hope that it's that. I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, like, to me, I'm hoping that what they're saying is actually true, that we're actually being bombed by some terrorist that wants to get us. And I thought, gosh, what is the state of affairs, and what is it that we've come to that I think, gosh, I hope it's only just that.
Wow. It is. It's kind of a revolutionary thought there, is when you're going, well, a lot of people died. A lot of people have lost their quality of life. A lot of people have been injured. Some people have lost loved ones. A town has lost its sense of security. And this was done by somebody outside of us that just had a bone to pick. And this is the way that you seek to comfort yourself with those thoughts. I don't want to live in a world where there is somebody out there waiting to get even with me, nor do I want to live in a world where I feel like as an individual, every single day I have to go out fully battle armored and ready to fight because these guys are there and they're always going to be there.
You know, and you do. I think, and that's the part where you just look at. There's so much fear in the world right now. You know, and we walk around, and it seems to be getting better or worse. I don't know. You know, Johnny A talks to me all the time about, like, dude, you got to just live your life. You know, you can sit there and run around thinking about all these guys that want to come get you or not, but we do have to take a break. So what I want to do is your point to that is maybe what we'll do is after the break we'll open up the phone lines, we'll take some calls, but I also want to talk about, like, why is it that we are just a single race, like you talked about, and yet it's now an us and them. And so maybe what we'll do is we'll discuss that coming out of the break in 90 seconds, guys. Yes, all right, guys. Maui Plumbing, hardworking, honest, talented plumbers. They show up on time, they do what they say, and they say what they're going to do, and they will actually call you back. If you call them at 344-0642, that's 344-0642, they will answer the phone, and they will call you back. And as a matter of fact, I used them personally last week. I called up, Ray answered the phone, and I had a toilet leaking. It was repaired that day.
I was going to say, just don't shave in the shower and you'll never have to call them. But okay. It was the toilet, so I don't want to know.
Well, what we're talking about, guys, is the state of affairs in the world, and why there's so, you know, is the light winning out over the dark? Is the dark winning out over the light? Why can't we just get along? And after the break, we were talking about, so why is there an us and a them? Why do they hate us? And who's the they and who's the us? And you can call in and voice your opinion at 242-7800. That's 242-7800. You can also get us on Facebook at Take Liberty with Lawrence Carnicelli, or tweet us. You can tweet us at Take_Liberty. And so, Shaggy, I believe that you said that you had a list for us as to why they hate us.
Man. Okay, well, I thought I would ask our listeners, okay? Now, the one thing you have to understand, the station I work for is a reggae station, so...
Right, Q103 here on Maui.
Yeah, and the audience likes to consider themselves very conscious, and of course, reggae music, we always consider it very conscious, very thinking, very progressive, very social, I guess you could say social. Mm-hmm. We love people.
Right.
And I thought, well, with such a loving community, let's ask them. Mm-hmm. Why can't we get along? Mm-hmm. And some of the answers really made a lot of sense.
Okay.
This one is the one that really gets me. It's from a guy named Mark, and he basically says it's foolish pride, greed, and ego. And if you had to sum up anything in the human condition that can cause bad judgments, ego is one of them, you know. Foolish pride is something that we as a country have exhibited in the past, and it led to things like the Civil War.
Sure. Well, even that keep going on. Is the foolish pride and the ego? I mean, I think that even as a nation, we're a collective, and we become kind of a thing, an entity, and we have an ego as a nation. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, the fact that we feel like it's our job, our duty to police the world.
Oh yeah.
You know, we're the bully of the world. You know, that's the truth of it. Is we're all over everywhere else, bullying everybody. So that's our own personal pride and ego.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was originally set up by Theodore Roosevelt, I believe, with the Roosevelt Doctrine, and the walk softly, carry a big stick, and then it got expanded, of course, during World War II and the early ages of Vietnam with the we will police the Northern Hemisphere, then we will police the entire world wherever our interests are being threatened. Now, I mean, this is the thing. It's okay to fight evil. We know this. Evil exists. Good exists. It's okay to fight evil. But what if you're on this whole big planet in the middle of this world, and, I mean, in the middle of this solar system, and one side of your planet doesn't know what the other side is doing. So you go to their side of the planet with all good intentions to bring good to what you say is evil. But what they see is somebody coming from outside of their borders, outside of their influence, outside of their societal norms, and saying, well, you guys are all evil. Sorry, we got to bomb you and wipe you out. To them, we're the devil.
Right. I mean, is we have a kill list.
Yeah.
President Obama has a kill list of people that are on that list that he says, okay, these people will die. And, and so the reality of that is it's us. They don't look at it as Obama. They don't look at it as, George W. Bush or whatever it is. They look at like Americans, that we're the bad guys over there killing them, and vice versa. I have friends here that think the same thing. They're just like, no, those guys want to go over and kill us. Well, and that's true. I personally don't have an issue with anyone in Afghanistan, in Somalia, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Iran. I really don't have an issue with any of those people. And if there's a border dispute between two different countries on the other side of the world, I quite honestly don't think that's any of our business.
Well, really, if you're being a truly enlightened person, no borders are your business. Our borders, their borders, any borders. You really need to start thinking about it as these are people on a rock. And if something happens to this rock, people are gone. All people. It doesn't matter what God you believe in, what form of sanity you prescribe to. It doesn't matter what political doctrine you are. If one little factor in our daily lives were to change, and it could be something like food, it could be something like water, it could be something like quality of air. Any one of these things will affect us no matter what God you believe in, no matter what party you belong to. These things will affect you as a species and a race. Why are we not thinking more along those lines?
Right, and guys, you too can chime in, 242-7800, 242-7800 if you want to weigh in on the subject. But yes, is really kind of what we're boiling this down to, and again, like we started this whole hour was, simple questions. And the thing is something to boil down to being something simple is, can we start looking at what we have in common rather than what we don't have in common? As we keep looking at, okay, well, you're labeled this and I'm labeled that. I believe in this God, you believe in that God, or your skin color's this and my skin color's that, or you live in that place and I live in this place, or your father did that and my mother did this. And there's, you can always find something different about somebody, but can we start finding common ground? Can we start finding out, okay, this is what we share in common, rather than, really the biggest difference between somebody in Afghanistan right now and me is who the leader is of that country and that area and that religion versus who's the leader of mine. It's just like, again, I go back to, I got no issues, but my leader has an issue with their leader.
Well, can I give you a little historic precedent real quick? Let's see.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take this caller. Aloha, caller. You are live on the air with Take Liberty with Lawrence Carnicelli. What's your name?
I don't. I think you think this is about religion, isn't it? I just jumped in.
Sure, you can talk about religion. What's your name?
I think everybody's fighting over who has the best imaginary friend. If we all closed our eyes and woke up tomorrow and just believed in nothing except, love, peace, and everything, what would the world be like? It's another form of racism. I mean, every Christian I've ever met, Mormon, Jew, everything, they all have racism towards the other group that's not their religion.
The thing is I don't think it's racism. I think when it comes to religions, there is a certain class warfare that happens of my God is better than your God, my doctrine is better than your doctrine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is like when you get caught up in these arguments, you really have to kind of step back and imagine yourself as a bunch of kids on a playground. And if we heard two kids on a playground fighting about, their imaginary friends or their belief systems, would we as the adults looking at them as the children think it was that serious of a deal, or would we tell them, hey, you know what, guys, knock it off, just get along?
Well, I just know religion has ruined and caused more deaths than anything out there, and I think there's just no place for it. I mean, I just don't agree with the religion at all.
Well, but see, I'm going to go ahead and throw a curveball to you, though, and that is this: is not believing in religion can also be people's religion. And to sit there and think like, okay, if we wiped all religion away from the face of the earth, then everybody would suddenly love everybody, because people don't love each other solely because of religion, I think is also a misnomer. So a position of saying no religion's better than this religion or that religion or whatever it is just another position. And that's why, to me, it sounds wonderful and utopian to say, let's just remove religion and then therefore we'll all love each other. But if you really look at the teachings of Jesus Christ, if you look at the teachings of Muhammad, if you look at the teachings of Abraham, if you look at the teachings of Buddha, all of these different avatars through the course of life, through the course of history, they teach peace and love. That is actually something. It's man that's twisted the message. So to sit there and say like, okay, remove the message and suddenly somehow it's all going to be better, I don't necessarily agree with that premise.
Okay.
Well, dude, thanks for the call.
No, that's fine. I mean, I disagree, but that's
and that's cool, and I love the fact that we have the conversation. I mean, and I really appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you chiming in and giving your opinion.
Oh, no, that's all right. Okay.
No, all good. Thank you. And so you two can call in 242-7800, 242-7800. We're basically talking about, what is the state of the world? What are the state of affairs? Is the light winning out over the dark? Is the dark winning out over the light? And why can't we all just get along? 242-7800. You two can chime in.
I've got one for you. This is along the lines of your favorite subjects. It's the media.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll look at all of the reports in the media yesterday, of course, we live, as far as media is concerned, a ratings-obsessed society. So every news outlet out there, they want to be the one that breaks the big detail, that paints the story completely. Now, this usually, back in the older days of journalism, meant that you had a large staff of people fact-checking. Now, you've got one guy, sits in a digital department, looks at Facebook, looks at Twitter, finds sources, finds more than one sources and says, oh, that must be verified information, and rushes to a newsroom. And we have errant reports that get out that way. And it is the media in a lot of ways that kind of fuels this whole us versus them hatred, because in their mind, in their quest for the almighty rating, they want a them, so that those people in the audience, that would be us, would have somebody to feel like this is our common uniting thing. Let's talk about this. It's us versus them. And them over there, well, it's these guys. But then sometimes it's not.
Well, and even I think sometimes it's even shame on us as the people that are listening, because, we're such an ADD society. We're such a I want it now. You can't even microwave a baked potato anymore, because that takes 8 minutes. It's just like forever. Like, oh my gosh, I can't. We want everything now, instant gratification. And so what happens is we get our little sound bites, and it's it's just like Twitter, 161 characters. We want to be able to communicate with the world in 161 characters, and so it's no different. And I had some friends of mine yesterday like, oh, did you hear about this Boston thing? And they, let's turn on CNN. They watch it for 20 minutes. And suddenly they feel like, okay, I hope they get the bad guy. And that's really what it was. Just like, oh, wow, this tragic thing happened. I hope they get the bad guy. And they shut it off and they move on their life. And I think that sometimes it really can be heavy. It is a lot of things in the world, because the other part, like you were saying, Shaggy, is what drives the media's ratings. And so what they try to do is they try to do things that are just more outlandish, more over the top, more dramatic. So we go ahead and turn to that particular station versus another one, and they get our ratings.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is something else I wanted to bring up. Back in World War II, and I bring this up because it's one of the examples of people in the media exercising independent thought. Propaganda back then, of course, against the Germans and the Japanese is we considered them less than human.
Right.
Let's just be honest here. We, as an American people, as an enlightened society, looked at two other countries and said, you are savages and animals.
Well, hang on a second. Well, just to be, just to bring it to light, the truth of it is we put Japanese Americans in internment camps.
And we called them Nisai.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yes, we absolutely did that. To think that that's not going to happen again, or that's not our orientation, is kind of silly.
You clearly don't know what country you're in.
Right.
But back in Hollywood, right around the run-up to Pearl Harbor and the Japanese fight in the Pacific, there was a film release called My Tokyo. It was a bunch of Caucasian actors that decided to get together and to paint a picture of the real Japanese people that lived in Japan that were not warmongers, that were not savages, that were not animals. And they sought to put this film out as the United States armies and armed forces were gearing up their propaganda to, these guys are animals, they're rats, they're Japs, they're nips, we hate them. They put out a film that says, look, these are real people. They have a real society. They have real heritage. And you really need to look at the people past the empire that they're in. Because when this war is over, we're going to have to sit here and look at these people again as humans.
Right.
And I thought that was a really great thing that media was able to do at that time frame. But now we live in a society where we don't want that. The media wants the bad guy. They want the us versus them, because them means ratings for us.
Right, and I can even tie that then into, the government and driving the agenda that, the government wants and all of those things as well. And we can even go to false flags, and how things are created and the dramatic effect to get what it is that they want.
Wag the dog.
Exactly, wag the dog. But we do have to take a break. So what we're going to do is in 90 seconds, we'll be right back. I believe, Shaggy, you got to say aloha, don't you? You got to take off?
I could do like 5 minutes if you need me.
Okay, then we'll have Shaggy here for another 5 minutes. Guys, call in after the break at 242-7800, and we'll be back in 90 seconds. Aloha, welcome back to Take Liberty with Lawrence Carnicelli. You can call in and give your opinion, 242-7800. That's 242-7800, and that's area code 808. But we're brought to you by Maui Surplus and Survival, boots, camping gear, mountain house freeze-dried rations, knives, military surplus, paintball accessories. The slide into anarchy and apocalypse won't be complete without a visit to Maui Surplus and Survival. They're located at 900 Aha Street in Wailuku next to Hotspot Video. And as I say every week, it's better to prepare a year too early rather than a day too late. And I was actually over there the other day, and they actually have ammo over there right now. I know a lot of places that, the shelves are cleared. There's just nothing on the shelves right now. But if you are looking for some ammo, go over there and visit them at 900 Ahaw Street. And then also, I think that in the promo, Gary, you threw down, next week's show is going to be the conspiracy theory show.
Oh, man.
So whatever conspiracy you guys have, whatever you want to talk about, all the way from 9/11 to the sinking of the Lusitania to whatever it is, if you chemtrails, we might even allow, if you think cane smoke, is there some conspiracy behind cane smoke, you can call in and talk about that next week. But right now, guys, 242-7800 if you want to chime in. I'm still joined by Shaggy from the morning show over at Q103, and we're talking about the state of affairs in the world. Are things better? Are they worse? Are they getting better, or are they getting worse?
Do you want to know one thing that's really kind of fresh on my mind today? Like looking around.
Mm-hmm.
I back in this is weird. Back in 9/11, 2001, I worked in Charlotte, North Carolina. Of course, it being on the eastern seaboard, everything for us happened in real time when 9/11 happened. In the days following it, and especially the day after, there was this weird sense of when you walk the streets that everybody you saw was connected to you. And it seems like at that time in our country, we kind of had a little bit of an awakening where we said, all of our little petty differences, Democrat, Republican, haves, have-nots, subdivision, trailer park, they all just disappeared. And we became, as far as a country, truly united. With things like the Boston bombing happening, and this goes back to World War II again, back when they first started the attacks on Pearl Harbor. I'm afraid that we have woken a sleeping giant. It's when you make the mass consciousness of a society aware of you. And things like bombings at the Boston Marathon, things like 9/11, things like Pearl Harbor, are the things that really we should look at as they're happening to us, not as a country, they're happening to us as a people, as an ideal, because that's what the attack is really for. They're not out to kill you, Lawrence. They're not out to kill you, Gary. They're not out to kill me, Shaggy. They're out to kill the ideals behind us. And when you have attacks like 9/11, when you have attacks like the Boston Marathon thing, that we still do not have all the answers. We don't know who done it, why they done it, how they did it, really, which is kind of the part that we should worry about first before we get into the whys.
Right.
But we as a people need to see these things as unifying forces. Instead of driving the finger pointing like Alex Jones yesterday, huge conspiracy theories all about how it was an inside job and this, that, and the other. Listen, I don't care. 3 people lost their lives. 12 people lost limbs. 178 people were sent to 4 area hospitals. Let's deal with the reality before we go into the fantasy. Mm-hmm. And let's think of each other as together. I'm with you, you're with me, we're in this together. And if you harm one of us, you harm us all.
You know, and I think that you kind of went a couple of different ways. Is one as far as like, you know, them killing us for our ideals, and I want to address that. But before that is the aspect of, does this bring us together, or, you know, does it separate us? And guys, you can call in and give your opinion as well. 242-7800. That's 242-7800. You're listening to Take Liberty with Lawrence Carnicelli, and I'm joined with Shaggy from the morning show at Q103. Is this part of, you know, these tragic events when they do happen, you know, can, like, just say 9/11. I mean, it really did unify the United States.
Yes.
But it drew this huge rift between us and this whole other aspect of the world. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's the one part that I think, you know, it can bring certain pieces together, but what is it that's going to happen? How can we go ahead and start addressing these things to bring together the collective whole? Because immediately, like I said, whether it's Alex Jones or whether it's even the government or the media, there's this us-them paradigm that starts, who did this? It's their fault. There's a they and there's an us. And everybody wants to identify with one or the other of them. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to identify with, oh, the good guys are us, whatever that is, quote unquote, us. And the bad guys are them, whoever did this awful, tragic, horrible thing. And so what we're doing is it's just further, it's an event that could potentially bring everything together, and yet it drives a wedge further into an us-them paradigm.
Well, ask yourself, when in the human condition have we ever sought to really unite?
The War of the Worlds.
Well, that brings up something.
War of the Worlds.
I had a comment today.
Very Orwellian, right?
Yeah, well, I put that comment up today on our Facebook page for my question.
Right.
Why can't we all get along? Guy by the name of Alexander says, well, we need an outside threat bigger than mankind. And I was reminded in 1986, yes, Ronald Reagan stood in front of the United Nations and said how quickly our political differences would disappear if we were faced with an alien force threatening to wipe out humanity.
Well, and even and I completely agree with that, because you know, the people that, you know, believe that, you know, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney allowed 9/11 to happen, or they conspired to make it happen, whatever it was, is it did unify the country, but it unified the United States. It brought up a lot of nationalism. And so I completely agree with that whole aspect is maybe, and that's even, you know, the people that are conspiracy theorists, and guys, next week we can talk about conspiracies, and we will talk about conspiracies, but the people that think, well, the reason why they're hiding UFOs and the U.S. Air Force is hiding UFO sightings and what's really going on is because if there was truly this outside source, if there really was aliens, then it would make us, the collective here on planet Earth, a collective, and we would then suddenly, even if it wasn't a threat, just the fact that there was another them makes us more of an us.
Yes. And they said that even in the first Men in Black movie. Tommy Lee Jones said to Will Smith's character, he says, look, I can tell a person about an alien. A person is rational, a person is independent, and a person is capable of acceptance. Large groups of people are irrational, reactionatory, and prone to panic. And that's what the whole, let's tell the people about this faction, or let's tell the people about this faction, that's always the logic they go for. Well, I could tell you, but you being people are reactionatory, quick to panic, and, you know, you like to tear stuff up when you're panicked, so we're just going to keep this a secret from you so there's no riots in the streets.
Well, but I think that's also, but we're also dealing with, I think, the most seductive thing for the human race is power. And the people that are in power want more power, and their whole drive is to stay in power. And so they create events, or when an event like this does happen, they look at it from the problem, reaction, solution. A problem is created, so then a reaction, whether it be through, and as I call it, the state-run media. So then there's all this reactionary stuff. So then they get to walk in and say, oh, hello, I've got the solution, which keeps them more and more in power. And that's where people then have become accustomed to saying, okay, the government is going to save us because the government has come in and saved us. And they have, it's like, okay, well, who's going to keep us from the bad people? Oh, it's these, Al-Qaeda's or whoever it is out there in the world. And so the government creates the reaction, and then they also then create the solution. So suddenly it's just like, okay, I'm willing to give up more freedoms. I'm willing to give up more civil liberties because mommy and daddy are going to take care of me. And so, but the thing is, but what that really does is it doesn't really truly create a solution. All it does is it gives somebody power to give us the illusion that they have the solution so they can stay in power. Yeah.
And I think Thomas Jefferson warned us about this a long time ago, and you should have listened. You really should have listened.
We all should have listened. I believe, Gary, do we got to take another break right here? Okay. And I believe, Shaggy, I do got to say aloha. Thank you very much for sitting in. I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet.